Welcome to the Equinety Podcast, where horse owners just like you share their incredible Equinety stories and how Equinety is changing their horses' lives. Whether you're searching for something to give your performance horse better focus, faster recovery, and more stamina, or in the extreme case where all hope seems lost, give your horse what it needs to help heal at a cellular level, you'll find it here. So jump in on today's episode to hear how Equinety is helping horses worldwide. Now, welcome your host, John Dowdy.
Hello and welcome to this week's Equinety Podcast. We are swinging up into the great country of Canada, Up in the West Coast, we've got Hailey Prest on the call. Hailey, welcome to the Equinety Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, it has been a long time coming. You've been using our product now for about 3 years.
Yeah.
We've been having these podcasts for 2 years, so it's taken us a while. I know you have a very busy schedule, but here we are, so we're excited to have you.
Oh, well, thank you. No, I'm really excited to get on here and share my stories. So my stories with Equinety, I've used it on multiple horses, but I'll talk about 4 that I have noticed tremendous differences with. The first horse would be the first horse I tried Equinety on was an older gelding I had, and he had really thin soles, and we couldn't, we were trying everything to get them thicker and stronger and build them up. And then this is through the winter months, and Canadian winters, I should say, are not the warmest. There's a reason why everyone wants to go south.
Down here in the States, we think Canada's got snow 24/7, 365. So.
Oh, I know. I have actually met people, and they're like, "So how are your polar bears?" I'm like, "Oh, they're great."
Oh, yeah.
They're
perfect.
Great. Yeah. No, I get that all the time. I even got that from a gentleman that said that to me when I was in Oregon. I was like, you do realize that British Columbia, Canada is only, I can make it there in a day, right? Like it's not 5 hours or, 5 days or something.
Yeah.
But so anyways, this horse, he was about 25. So, he's not a young spring chicken anymore, but everything else seemed pretty healthy on him, except he was really loose, and I couldn't seem to get him firmed up, and his feet were just, his coat started to get dull, and it was just, So that's when I had started talking to you, and I started him on Equinety, and I couldn't believe the difference because his like the light in his eye kind of came back, and his coat got better, his feet got harder and started to grow better, and his stool obviously firmed up as well. So I was really happy to see all that change with him.
Before you jump into that one, how about what was approximate time frame on all of that happening?
I noticed the stool firming up in about just a couple days with him, and then it was about 6-7 weeks because my farrier was there next. So I saw him walk around better, and I was living at the time in Abbotsford, British Columbia, so it's right on the coast. So you get rain 365 days a year, it feels like sometimes. So, and my place was built on a gravel pit. So everything drained really well, but they're still wet. So, I noticed a difference, but it was really a huge difference to me when I had my farrier, who doesn't really talk very much. He's like, "What are you feeding this horse? Like something has changed." And I was like, "Oh, okay, perfect. I'm going to make a note of this." I'm glad that he noticed. So,
yeah,
that
that's
was
awesome.
About the time frame on that horse.
Great. Now, for those of you tuning into this podcast, we're going to be talking about 4 horses in particular, and then another crew of just training horses in general. So it's multiple horses, multiple things going on here, different problems, different horses, and how this one product, Equinety Horse Excel, has helped each one. And I'll get into the science of that as we go along here and why it works in so many different ways with different horses. So, okay, so horse number 2.
Horse number 2, I'll make it as my gelding, who is CL Rooster. When this accident happened with him in spring, he was only 4 at the time. And, through his training through the winter and early spring months, I was having a really hard time with him actually tying up quite often. So, I was trying everything I can to help out with that and keep him calm and just helping out with his tying up. But this accident that happened in, when was that? I think it was end of April. And he came in from the field, and I had his gate tied open. He was on a huge pole, like a big, thick pole, and he flew in and he hit his hip. I guess he didn't realize how big he is and how much of a tank he is. And he took the pole out that was tied, gate was attached to it and tied. So it was a big, heavy gate too. And he took the whole pole out with his hip and the gate and everything.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, being me, I go up to him like, okay, what are we dealing with here? And, I think he was more embarrassed because he wouldn't let me see his hip, and he's, he was
funny.
really sensitive.
Yeah.
And, he was such a character. And so I get him and I'm checking him out, and I'm really close with my vet. So of course I get on the phone with him. I'm like, okay, so this just happened. Send him the pictures. And he's like, okay, you're going to have to rest him up and, put your therapeutic blankets on him and do your barrel racer thing. And you're going to, you can't ride him for months, basically is what I got from my vet. And I was like, okay, this is not part of my program. I don't have time for him to be off for that many months. Because I think he said about 3 or 4 months that it was going to take for just to make sure he's 100% again. Because he had, his hip was opened with this injury. And so he was on Equinety already. So I doubled up his dosage for a little bit. And I phoned my vet because I would go out to feed one morning, and I didn't have stalls I could lock them in at night, but I had smaller pens I made. And Rooster is out there running and bucking. And I phoned my vet, and I'm like, just so you know, this is happening. And he's like, I'm down the road doing a call. I'll come and see him. You can't have him be running around. And he showed up and he goes, I can't believe that this horse is feeling as good as he is. The inflammation is gone. And so where he hit the pole or the gate, I guess the hinge, it cut into his hip. So he had an open wound there. And it was just nasty. And he's like, I can't believe how clean this looks, how well it's all healing. He just couldn't believe how good that looked. And he's like, what kind of barrel racer trick are you doing? What therapeutic blanket are you using? Or, what's the thing? And I said, well, I'm using my back on track and I'm feeding Equinety. And he's like, Equinety? And I said, yeah, you're going to have to look it up. I said, and then I, of course, tell him about it. And he's like, oh, okay, good to know. And so I was really impressed by that vet being so shocked at what he looked like. And it definitely cut down, obviously, his healing time with it because he came about a month and a half, roughly, after that. Yeah. And it was going to be double that. So, it was definitely a good savior for that one.
For sure. Well, I tell you, with all the feedback we've received, we've been on the market now going on 7 years, and it's probably one of the most common things when you're dealing with an injured horse or one that's come out of a surgery or, they're just trying to repair from some kind of an injury. Using this product, all the feedback, and of course we don't hear 100% of them, but the people that are pretty outspoken, they always report that the horse is back faster than what they were told, or whatever the projected time was. So that's very, very common.
Yeah, I was really pleased with that, on the recovery time, because, if you own a horse, you've been through injuries.
Right.
It's just something that happens. And especially when you're in the competitive performance horse world, you don't have that time always to stall rest one for 6 months. Not that his was going to be for 6 months, but I've had other horses that I didn't have Equinety at the time. And thinking back, man, what would that have meant for that horse's career if we didn't have to be laid off in the midst of a season?
Sure.
And, had him come back stronger and feeling better.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, let's go into the next one.
So the next horse I want to talk to you about was a little gray mare that we had. And she was naturally just really hot-headed. She had a really hard time focusing on anything. Just you could see her out in her stall, and she'd just be busy. It looked like we just fed her buckets and buckets and buckets of sweet Peter, like a hot, starchy grain, and she'd just twitch out. And I was like, what is wrong with this horse when she got here? And she was really marish and just nasty. And so I always had her over, in her own area. And this is actually my boyfriend's horse at the time. And team ropers aren't very known for, or at least the ones I was around weren't known for riding every single day and, doing all the things to maintain one. And this mare, she'd like spin in the box on him and she'd scale anything she was tied to. And it was just kind of she just wouldn't focus and do her job. And I'm not expecting horses to stand like rocks I'm not expecting them to just stand still and only do their job and go back to the trailer with their head down. Not in the performance first world that I'm in, at least. Yep. And so this mare, I started feeding her Equinety, and he couldn't believe it. She wasn't spinning around the box anymore. She was easier to be around. And, I really noticed the difference with her, because when you got on her or when you came around her, she was like, okay, game on. I'm ready to focus. We're going to do a job. And she finally had somewhere to channel all that energy into something productive.
Yes.
Instead of pacing my fence line and digging a ditch.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those, we hear this all the time, horses that have a lot of stress, anxiety, a bit spooky. And we've got a lot of feedback from people that they've seen complete demeanor changes in as little as 2 to 3 days, even.
Oh, yeah. No, this mare definitely changed within days. And I thought, okay, how long are we going to feed this for to see something change and all that? But no, she immediately, before Equinety, you'd go into her pen and she'd beeline it away from you and then not come at you mean, but come near you. But you wouldn't be able to walk up and pet her. It was like a game for her. And first thing in the morning, there's no games I play. I'm still asleep usually when I go out and feed, and until I have my coffee and my few minutes to wake up, nothing. I don't talk. I don't nothing.
Right.
So I'm not going to go out there and play a game with a horse. And then after Equinety, she didn't run around as much in her pen, and I'm all fine. If they want to run around and buck and play, that's great. I want my horses to be feeling good for that. I don't want them to run around like a chicken with their head cut off for no apparent reason.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what this horse was like before Equinety. And after having it, she was like, okay, she was just way more focused in doing a job and just being a pleasure to be around.
Right. Yeah. So, now, after we talk about this next horse, I'll get into why this product helps in so many ways and why these things are happening just in the 3 that you've described. But we'll go on to number 4 now.
Okay, so number 4 would be the mare that I was running at the time. Her name is Miss Copper Cartel, and she was my main barrel horse. With her, I noticed, so I had treated her for ulcers, but I wanted to put her on a supplement to kind of maintain, healthy gut function and everything after that. And, when you start Googling and researching, it's amazing how many you can find. And for me, I'm a scientific person. I love hearing testimonies from people, but I want to know the science behind, why does it work? What's the thing?
Right.
And that's what I like about Equinety is you guys have the scientific facts. You have the data. You have all the stuff to say, this is a product and this is why it works. And as you know, that amino acids like that is, if you don't have the right amount or the right type of essential amino acids, it's not going to get absorbed properly. So that's one thing I really liked about Equinety is that it is really cost effective to only feed. You only have to feed 1 scoop, but you are getting the right kind of amino acids, the right type, and the right amount of them. And I also like that it's also really cost effective. Then,
yes,
you can feed more horses or get more horses to then feed it to, and all the other things that way.
Yeah.
That's the way I looked at it. I was like, okay, if I put it on this product, I was like, that gives me, so much more money that I can put towards, buying another horse. Or
yes. Now I want to expand on that for sure. Now, so with the ulcer, what did you find there specifically? How it was helping with the ulcer issues?
So with her, I noticed I knew she had ulcers when I would touch her on her side, and she was hurting. So, and we had a really stressful season. So I treated her for the ulcers, but before I treated her, if you touch anywhere like around her back cinch to in her flanks or like going up towards her lumbar at all, she was hurting. So I treated her for the ulcers, and then I started her on Equinety. And that spring, I was getting ready for the next season after I had started on Equinety for a little bit. And, she's a hotter mare too. So I had noticed the same with her as I had noticed with the gray mare, that, they have better focus. They're not as merry. They're, more focused to do a job. Excuse me. And they had faster recovery just coming with their runs. But so I had started her on Equinety, and I had gone to ride her again for the next season after treating for the ulcers. I go to do my back cinch up, and you can kind of see that she was waiting for it to hurt. Like she kind of had like her stance, and I just pet her and I rubbed her, and she like turned around and she's like, that doesn't hurt. Like that was hurting for a long time. And like last year that really hurt. And I just rub her, and she was like, oh, and then she started licking her lips and, get her saddle up, and there was no pinning of the ears. And I was like, nice dragon, like be nice, like don't, like, yeah. And, she's a doll, but she's very, like you can tell, and I've had her since she was 2 and she'll be 14 this year. So I know everything there is to know about her. So she has a look when she thinks something's going to happen. And then there's a look when something is going to happen. And so I only had the one look the whole time, but I was like, this isn't going to hurt you.
Right.
So I was really, really happy with that.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things, this is a horse that you would typically have injected on a regular basis?
Yeah. No, I've had her injected in her hocks, and I did her stifles, and I did it as just a maintenance thing. Mm-hmm. I'm like I said, I'm a very scientific, based person. So, I mean, I'll feed a supplement, but I'm always worried they're not going to eat it all. So I don't, mix it with water or, add something to it so everything would stick to the grain or whatever I was trying to get them to eat. So with injections, I knew that they get, the whole syringe of that injection. Mm-hmm. And when I started feeding Equinety, I was mixing it with water because I don't know if they're going to get it down. And, I hate feeding product and seeing it on the floor. So I was mixing with water, and then one day I forgot, and I, go into their stalls and be like, oh my gosh, I better put some water in there if I run around the side of the barn. And my horses are licking their buckets clean with no water in it. Like they've eaten it right actually out of my hand too. Like I
yeah.
wanted to see if they actually just like it or if it just stuck to their grain or, something. So that tells me a lot that if your horse is going to choose that supplement, there's something in it that they know they need.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's not, it's not full of molasses and sugar or starches or fillers. It's what it is. And they have licked my hand clean when I put it on my hand to see if they've actually eaten it or if they just blow it and it would go everywhere.
Right. But, yeah. Awesome. Well, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, maybe you're doing your research, you've come across our product and you're, trying to find out more about what this is. And we're specifically talking about the Equinety Horse Excel in this podcast. We actually have 2 products, but the Equinety Horse Excel is the one that we've been out with for going on 7 years now. And what that is, it's 100% pure amino acids. There's no fillers, no sugars, no starches, and there's no loading dose. So that large tub, which is $100 here in the US, has 100 servings in it. So it runs $1 a day. And it's 8 specific amino acids they're specifically designed to give the body what it needs to release the necessary hormones from the pituitary gland. And those hormones are specific for repair. And so when you can get the body to release its own hormones, it's now that horse's body that's sending its own hormones to the problem areas. So when we go back and just, recap these 4 particular horses, you've got one that had a serious injury on the hip with an open wound, tying up issues. It kind of fixed all that. Then you have an older horse with horrible feet, thin soles, loose stool. And I think you even mentioned, Hailey, prior to us recording this call, how the farrier, you could have the best farrier on the planet, and if there's nothing to work with, what are they supposed to do? And so...
Exactly.
Yeah. And so one of the great things with this product, and again, it doesn't fall into the category of a hoof supplement, a joint supplement, a calmer. a shiny coat or muscle building. It doesn't fit into any one of those specific categories. But when it comes specific to the hooves, it's really giving the body what it needs to, again, to release those hormones. And then you're going to find, as you did with your horse, thicker soles, all around healthier hoof growth. And ultimately, this is giving your farrier more to work with in a shorter amount of time. The other horse, just a hot-headed, stressed, kind of doing her thing, and then she's more calm and more focused. The other one with ulcers, you were able to reduce the injections, but overall just calmer. So this is why the product helps in so many ways, because, again, we're giving the body what it needs to release its own hormones, and then it's that particular horse that's sending its own hormones to the problem areas with pinpoint accuracy. And so in essence, it's customizing to each horse. Now, one of the other things that you had mentioned about cost effective, saving money, and you can spend more money on other things. I didn't ask you this before, but would you agree, and this is, I guess, a leading question, but a lot of the feedback that we get, people are typically saving anywhere from 20 to 40% in medical and other supplements just by using this one product.
Oh, for sure. And what I was going to say too is that I always call it doing the barrel racer when you look for a supplement, say it's for their belly, for their ulcers, or just something. And then you get on, they're getting older, I'm really going to work them this season, so I should have them on a joint supplement. And then it's, they might need a more muscle help or something. They might need this. And then what about that? And what about this? And you get going. Like, I was hauling with a girl, a quick story. I was hauling with a girl, and I was loading one side of, I was doing the living quarters, and she was loading her grain and stuff up. And we get to the barrel race, and she unloads a moving tub of bags and jars. And I'm like standing there with my, my grain and my Equinety, and, I feed Platinum, and I'm like, maybe I feel kind of weird because I'm not making a science project in a bucket for a horse. I'm not adding, a sprinkle of this, a fairy dust of that, and 3 pumps of this stuff. I'm like just standing there. I'm like, why? What is all this for? And she could tell me, she's like, this has this, this has that, this has this. And I was thinking, and she was telling me, why she was feeding each one. And I was thinking, well, yeah, I had a horse that had an injury, and I had him on Equinety, and yeah, my horse had thin soles, and I put him on Equinety, and yeah, my horse I used to do injections and this and that, and give him Equinety. And, I was kind of going through this, that this isn't a one size fits all, because it's going to be different for each horse.
Yep.
But this is a product that I feel like I can feed this to absolutely every horse I have, and it will fix or help with a problem area, whether that's thin soles, whether that's their ulcers. It's I feel like this product just kind of goes to the area that needs the most attention.
Yes.
And then just kind of helps everything out. Once everything gets in balance, then it's a great maintainer product as well. And, I've had it on tons of training horses I've had in, and, it's great to see them all feel great too. And I mean, there's other stories that we could go into about their injuries that they've had, and, how Equinety has sped that up and that. But I love that it's one product that's going to cover everything from head to tail, from withers to feet, everything in between. That this is something that it's essential in my program, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, it is. It's, and I tell people it's not a miracle supplement, but it sure has done some miraculous things. And, when you come across a product for the first time, and then you start seeing some of the before and afters, or you start reading some of the testimonials, and at first thought, people are like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for. But then as you keep reading, you're like, come on. All right. This can't be. This sounds
Where's the negative Nancy?
way too good to be true. And then we have converted so many of the skeptics in a big way. But, when it gets back to it, and you kind of mentioned this, it's amino acids. And here's one of the great things with amino acids. And we're blessed because, again, we had no idea this was going to help the way that it has in the horse industry. But what we're finding is it doesn't matter where in the country or what country the horse is in, what they're doing for a job, what their diet is. It could be the best of everything. And they all seem to be benefiting from this product. So we just have to conclude that horses in general are deficient and the right amount of amino acids. And that's really what this is doing. And so, it just helps get the horse back to where you want it to be, balancing it from the inside out. It gives the farrier more to work with in a shorter amount of time. It helps the repairing process much faster. The other thing, because it's already in the amino acid stage, it starts working in 24 hours. And I would say the vast majority of people, and I'm talking upper 90 percentile, have given feedback in 30 days or less that they notice changes. It could be the spark in the eye. It could be softer, shinier coat. They're just moving better. They feel better. So those are pretty darn common things that we just hear over and over and over. So,
oh, yeah. No, I noticed differences, especially with the mares, with them focusing and just being easier to be around in general. I noticed that in days. Like, It didn't take me 30 days to be like, you know what? You're really nice to be around today. It was, you go out there in a couple days and you're like, okay there, Sally. Your attitude has changed. Things are good. You're feeling better. You're not looking at me like you're going to bite me.
Yeah.
And, everyone's happy.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's awesome.
I noticed really quick results with it. And that's something, too, that I like, that I didn't have to feed a lot to see a difference. Because then for me, then I start, going into, okay, if I have to feed this much, that cuts down on, how many servings are going to be in the tub if I have to feed, half of it to see a result right away.
Yep.
So with this, when I felt like my horses needed a little extra punch, or we were on the road for a long time, or, had a really stressful haul, or they had their injury, then I would up them to 2 scoops. But I just keep everyone on one and just kept it easy. And less is more for me in my program. I like stuff that I can pronounce and understand what it is.
Right.
And with Equinety, it's pretty self-explanatory on why it works and how it is. And I also like that, it's easy to travel with too. I didn't have to have a moving bin full of products to get the same results as Equinety does. So
yeah,
I like that too. It's easy to fit. It's not a big bulky thing. It's not heavy, obviously.
Yeah, it's about the half the size of a Folgers coffee can. It's got 100 servings in there.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to haul. One other thing, because you had kind of touched upon this a couple of times, so just anybody that might have this question in their head, I had mentioned that it targets the pituitary gland. So if you have a horse with Cushing's, we have tons and tons and tons of testimonials with how this has helped with Cushing's horses. It's 100% safe, because we're trying to balance the right amount of the right amount of hormones that are coming out of the pituitary. And also, it's 100% safe with any other medications or supplements. And as a matter of fact, whatever you're giving your horse, we recommend to not change any of that and just add this to it, because it's just a teaspoon. And it doesn't matter if it's a mini horse or a draft horse, they all get the same dose, which is kind of what you had mentioned, because it's based on the size of the pituitary gland, not on the size of the horse. And so we recommend just adding this to whatever program. And then within a couple weeks to 30 days is when most people can begin seeing the results. And then you can make the determination whether to reduce or stop giving other things, but that's completely up to you.
Yeah. No, that's what I like too, is it's not, a science project to figure out, okay, how many grams does this particular horse get? And how much does that one exactly get? And it's one scoop, everybody's on the same page. We're all good. Everyone's getting exactly what they need. Nothing more, nothing less. It's pretty basic and self-explanatory, but
yeah, it makes it easy. So, well, for those tuning in, anybody that might still be on the fence about this, is there any last words you might say to them to get them to try the product? This is going to be kind of hard, or not harsh on me, but I've grown up in the performance horse world, and I've been barrel racing competitively for years, and I used to trick ride with my sister. And so when there's generally about 3 girls in the trailer that are barrel racing or doing some kind of performance horse event, we are Googling, researching, being like, this is the new best thing. This is what you need to have. Like, this is it. This is it. This is it. And so I have done I call it the barrel racer, when you go into extreme Google mode and you Google everything to figure out, why is this happening? And the thing I liked about Equinety is that like I said, it is cost effective. So it's not like you're
being like, okay, you know what? This is going to cost me, $3 a day. And I really hope I see a result. It's $1 a day because there's 100 servings in that tub. And it's the proof's in the pudding. And you've had so many people from all different disciplines contact you. I know because I've gone on your website and I've seen them for myself. So if you have team ropers, barrel racers, dressage, I don't know if it's dressage, equine people.
Yeah.
And then show jumpers and cutters, reiners, everything. And we all agree on one product. I mean, that should speak for itself in trying it.
Yeah. So for those on the fence, get off your duff and try some products. Try some Equinety. Huh?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Hailey Prest out of Canada, I really appreciate you taking the time to share your stories here. I know you're a busy gal and got a lot going, so I do appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully this will hit home with some folks out there and it'll help them out.
Oh, for sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated it.
That's all for this episode of the Equinety Podcast. For more information on purchasing Equinety, be sure to visit our website at teamequinety.com, where you'll also find product information as well as more testimonials on how others have seen amazing results by implementing Equinety into their horse's supplement regime. We'll have more stories on how Equinety is helping horses worldwide right here on a future episode of the Equinety Podcast.